Hey, you're listening to AfroPicks, and remember to keep your hair high, but your hand held higher. Hey y'all, and welcome to this week's episode of AfroPicks. So the stories this week are short, sweet, and simple. There's not a lot to explain. There's not a lot to necessarily talk about, even though we're going to talk about them. But the stories, some of them we've covered, some of them we haven't covered, so we'll just get right into it. So the first story is about a discussion. So Kappa Alpha Psi Philadelphia alumni chapter, they hosted a discussion with the National Black Police Association with black men, young boys who were from the ages of 9 to 18 about law enforcement and the perception of how people see law enforcement police officers in their communities. So about nearly 50 people came to the event, and a quote from Reverend Gregory Lamar Stewart, he said that the young people were able to engage African American officers on their concerns about police and community engagement. This story was reported by the Philadelphia Tribune. So my opinion on this, I think that when we talk about police officers and we talk about police brutality and the influence of media on young children, young boys, I think that, I guess I'll start off by saying my stance on police. I consider myself to be an anti-police person, especially in the way that police officers operate in this society. I see their necessity when it comes to solving issues and protecting people, but the way that it's run now, I don't agree with any of the systems, and I think that it needs to be dismantled and a new system needs to be brought along. So the way that I'm seeing this, I see the story, I read the story, it makes me curious of what types of conversations the young men were having with young men were having with these police officers, because I know one of the police officers had said, "Oh, I'm from the hood too. I went through the same experiences as you," and things like that. And I just think that in the climate that we're in now, in the climate of a police state, we have to be careful with talking about the police and those interactions, because when we talk about the police, we're talking about a greater system, and whether you're black, you're white, you're whatever, if you are a police officer, you play into a system that's designed to disenfranchise people. So I think that the conversation was important to have. I think that it was a good opportunity to clear the air about how young boys feel about seeing other young boys dying on the news at the hands of police, but at the same time, I think that we need to be wary about having those conversations because it's important to lessen the fear should increase black joy, but at the same time to be realistic about this is what's happening, this is what's going on. So the next story involves a character that has been talked about on this podcast a few times and has been talked about in depth. So y'all know how I feel about Bill Cosby. Y'all know where I stand with Bill Cosby. So his retrial is happening on the 9th, so next Monday. This Monday, they went through jury selection to find out who would be able to sit on the trial and be a juror and not have bias and things of that nature. So Bill Cosby was there watching the jurors doing whatever it is that he does to get his charges off of him or whatever. So if you go to the court in Montgomery County, which I plan on going to next week to see some of the trial, but if you plan on going to the trial, you're not allowed to wear anything that says that you affiliate with any side. So you're not allowed to wear something that is against Bill Cosby. You're not allowed to wear something that's in support of Bill Cosby. So if you're planning to go to the trial, they're banned. The protesters that came today, a lot of them had on shirts that either supported Bill Cosby or talked about how bad Bill Cosby was. One group wore flowers to represent the victims in the case. So you're no longer allowed to do that. And if you go to the trial, you'll get banned. So if you're interested in going, just as a heads up, to just wear neutral clothing and not wear anything that supports a specific side, because it would be a shame to go all the way, like, especially if you're from Philly, because Norristown isn't that far, but like it is a ways from Philly, and it'd be a shame to go all the way up there and then be told you can't come in because you're wearing some type of thing that supports either side. I personally, I understand why the judge made that decision, but at the same time, I guess, I feel like it's important to see where people stand, but just a fair warning, if you're planning to go, don't wear anything that sides with any one side. So the last story is very interesting. So last year, on May 31st, Councilman David Oh was stabbed in the ribs and slashed in one of his arms in an unprovoked attack. The man that he accused did it, and the man that the courts accused did it, Sean Yarbrough. He was acquitted last Thursday for stabbing Councilman O. So recently, Yarbrough and his father went on WURD to talk about the case, to talk about how it felt for him to be acquitted from the crime. So Councilman O was listening to the segment, so he called in and he basically said that Yarbrough did it and that he's not going to apologize for making his accusation because he did it and he shouldn't have gotten acquitted, and just this back and forth of what should have been done, what shouldn't have been done. David O specifically, this was reported by Philly.com. So David O specifically said about Yarbrough, "I really just think it's unfortunate that the young man had to come to a point where he would be reckless enough to take somebody's life or hurt them." So this story is is very, like I said, it's very interesting. It's a lot of different parts to it. So Yarbrough said that, in his defense, Yarbrough said that there was a man from Florida that was responsible for the stabbing and it wasn't Yarbrough. But obviously, Councilman O doesn't believe that and pinpointed Yarbrough and said that he did it. But it was found out that he was not responsible in the court of law, that he was not responsible for the stabbing, and he was acquitted. So this story is just all over the place, and I'm trying to figure out where do you start, where does it begin. So Yarbrough is a black, is Asian. So I guess in terms of issues between different minorities, I think that those issues do happen. Those issues happen. Those issues are real things. But I think that in terms of profiling people and saying this person did this and this person did that, I think just in general, just walking away from the case, the story a little bit, just in general, that is a common thing to profile people because of their race, because of their gender, because of whatever difference that they have for doing a certain thing, and then being found out later that that person wasn't responsible for the crime or for what they did. So it's possible that somebody in Florida could have stabbed Councilman O, but Yarbrough was there. Yarbrough was the person that Councilman O said that did it, and it was found out that he didn't do it. So I think there's an issue of profiling somewhat, because the man in Florida could look like Yarbrough. The man in Florida might not exist. Maybe Yarbrough did actually stab him. The crime itself isn't something that should be condoned, because nobody should be stabbing anybody. But the way that Councilman O was going on and being so adamant about this being the person that stabbed him, and then the court, even though the court system's not to be trusted, the court system is a mess. But being found that, Yarbrough didn't do it, and him going, and Councilman just kind of going out of his way at every instance to be like, oh, well, he did it, I don't understand why they did this. Like, it's just kind of a weird place as to where is the line, kind of like, where is the line, because this person was found to not be responsible for the crime. He was acquitted from stabbing him. So it's just very, like I said, there are a lot of layers and different aspects of the story and the case, but the ultimate thing that I want to explain, that I want to get out of the story, and not necessarily because, like I said, it could be either or, but profiling, like the issue of profiling, the issue of pursuing people that even though they were found not responsible for the crime that they did, they're still getting attacked. And I don't fault Councilman O for, if Yarbrough was the person who actually did it, I don't fault him for going out of his way to say that this person did this to me, this person stabbed me. I don't fault him for that. But at the same time, I'm just thinking in the context of today and the interactions with police and interactions with, like, the first story about Kappa Alpha Psi and the young boys talking to the police officers. I'm just thinking about the justice system and the way that it works for some people and the way that it doesn't work for others. As we do every episode, we always acknowledge the orgs on Temple's campus that are promoting Black excellence. So SEAL is having an African networking program today from 6 to 8 p.m. in Minton Hall 250. And BSU had an environmental justice program yesterday, Monday, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. in the cinema. So that is all the time that we have for this week, but look out on WHIP's website for the next episode. I'm Jaya Montague, and remember to keep your hair high, but your hand held higher.